Life.Church Open Network, welcome. We are so glad that you're here. We are going to be talking today about baptisms and how we do baptisms here at Life.Church. I'm joined today by Jacqueline Van and Tyler Johnston. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
We're excited.
I'm so glad to talk about this. So these guys know everything about how we do baptisms here at Life.Church. Tyler, he is the central ministry leader over operations, and then Jacqueline is the associate ministry leader over operations here. So man, combined they have like 12 years of experience. Tyler's been on the team since 2010, and Jacqueline's been on the team for almost 5 years. She has launched campuses. You've done portable campuses. You've done baptisms in backyards if necessary, right?
Yes.
And then Tyler, you've really helped like shape how we do baptisms. Tell us a little bit about your time at Life.Church so far.
Yeah, so I started at Life.Church in 2010 at our Fort Worth location as an operations pastor, getting to be a part of leading through baptisms here at our church. And then around 2014, moved up to our South Tulsa location as an operations pastor as well. And man, I've been part of the operations ministry here at Life.Church for a little over 7 years, and I've had the opportunity to be a part of baptisms for that whole duration. So love what baptisms represent, love how we approach them, and love looking at how we can always think to make things better with baptism.
Yeah, that's what I love about sitting down with you guys and getting to talk about it, because we have tried to sharpen them and make them better and better so that they're just a really life-giving experience for the people being baptized and the people observing. So that's what we want to share with you guys today. So first, long before baptism day actually happens, you guys are thinking about preparation. What's, like Tyler, what's the first things that are coming down the pike for you as you prepare for baptisms?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we know that our heart when it comes to baptisms and the weekend of baptisms is that they're meaningful and they're organized. And so we can't get to that place unless we really prepare well and prepare in advance. And so when it comes to preparing for baptisms, we really realize that it begins with just raising awareness of what baptism is, when baptism is, and then who should be a part of the next baptism event.
Yeah, because you're really looking at the people being baptized, you know, like maybe I've been in the church, but I've not yet been baptized, or I was baptized as a child, or I'm a new Christian and I would love to be baptized. So there's those folks who are going to be baptized. Then there's the people that they might invite, their family and their friends.
Right.
And then there's also the people that are just attenders. They're going to experience baptism the same as the folks being baptized. So you can be like priming the pump kind of for how far out would you start in talking about baptisms?
That's a great question. Our approach really is we like to start talking about baptisms at a lot of our locations right after the weekend of a baptism weekend.
So you've had a baptism weekend, and we have them quarterly at Life.Church. So you've had a baptism, and the next one will be in 3 months, and you can start talking about it right after it?
Absolutely. Okay. You know, the idea behind that is at our church, every single weekend we present an opportunity for people to follow Christ. And because of that, we realize that we also want to present them with an opportunity to take a next step. And one of the best next steps for people that have committed their life to Christ is to make that decision public. And the Bible tells us that that's through baptism.
Yeah. Okay, so that's an easy part of stage communication then. Maybe you've just had a call for Christ, people are raising their hands, and as a next step, you can tell them, hey, you know, get in touch with us or sign up in the app or whatever your communication looks like at your church to be baptized next. But then you really start hitting it hard about 3 or 4 weeks ahead of when you're going to do a baptism.
Yeah, right? At a lot of our locations, what we found to work best for us is letting people know way out in advance when baptism weekend is so they can plan for it. Stage communication is a great time to do that. So is social media. But really when we get up close to the event, people are really finalizing their plans for baptism weekend, because it's not just about the participant, it's about the friends and the family members. Some even might be coming in from out of town to be a part of such a special event. And the more that we can just finalize those plans and help people square away all their details, the better we know that their baptism experience can be.
Yeah. Okay, so the general principle is that baptism is something we talk about as a next step all throughout the year. But then when we know that there's one scheduled for 3 or 4 weeks out, we can really start increasing stage communication about it so that people know that they can invite their friends and family and those people can prepare to come in. What are some things that we do to communicate with the people who are signed up to be baptized? You know, they've said, yep, I want to be baptized. Do we contact them? Do we meet with them? How does that work?
Yeah, so we do contact them. One of the most common ways that we do that is just reaching out, whether they've given us their email address or a phone number, connecting with them to really understand where they are in their interest. We realize that everybody that sort of reaches out to us and lets us know that they're interested in baptism, that might mean that they're interested in getting baptized, or it might mean they're interested in just the idea of baptism and understanding more. And so it always leads to a conversation. And so over the phone, that can happen real naturally, but we also send out email communication, and a lot of the times we'll include a short video that just explains really what baptism is, what the Bible says about baptism, and what that looks like here at Life.Church.
Okay, so that's the initial maybe exploratory or equipping piece for the person who's going to be baptized, right? And then later on in the process, there's a baptism meeting that we're going to talk about in another training. So stick around on this page and you'll see that in another video. So Jacqueline, we talked a lot about this being an opportunity to invite people, that there might be friends and family there too. So just talk about that whole concept. Why are we inviting people to baptism?
Yeah, it's so exciting. It's such a big step in somebody's relationship with Christ. And so we really encourage people to just feel the importance, feel the weight of that decision, and invite people to come be a part of their baptism, just like they would maybe a graduation or a baby shower, just kind of marking that life event that's going on in your life. And so we have things ready for people that are signing up, like invite cards where they can pass them out to their friends and family and coworkers. Just because this moment of really celebrating your decision with Christ, it could be an opportunity even for those people that are not saved that you're close to, that they can come and be a part of this and be a part of the celebration with you.
Yeah, I love that so much. I love the way you framed it like it's an important life event. It's, you know, almost really like, hey, come to our wedding, come to our baby's dedication, things like that. And it is a really, really good invite tool. And that's something really important to talk about, maybe from stage or however it looks in your church, if you meet with baptism people in a group or in a class prior. But that's a really, really important thing to talk about. Give them the language that they can use to invite people. You know, if it's like, man, we are celebrating baptism, this is a really important milestone in my life. I would love it if you would come celebrate with us. That celebration note is something that is really cool too, because baptism, you know, theologically, philosophically, it is really important. But some places do it very somberly, kind of, and we've chosen here at Life.Church to do it as a celebration. You know, not taking it at all lightly, not flippant. It's not that it's just a party. It's not that, but that it is a celebration and a sign of worship to God. So you mentioned this idea of inviting people, and we think of friends and family that we can invite to our baptism. It's going to be this milestone that we're celebrating, but some people even use it as kind of an evangelism tool.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's such a huge opportunity just to celebrate such an important moment in that person's life, and to be able to invite other people that are important to you to come celebrate with you is a huge opportunity. I think that baptism is very similar to other life events, maybe like a graduation or a baby dedication, where you want to invite people that are important in your life to come celebrate with you. And one thing that I just think of is you can invite people all the time to church, and they may say no if they don't have that relationship with Christ. But the likelihood of them being able to come to church to celebrate you in that special moment with baptism is a huge opportunity, because they're invested in your life. And so I remember when I got baptized, my family was able to come to church and celebrate that moment with me, and that just meant the whole world to me. And so we do things like we resource those people that are getting baptized with things like invite cards to be able to give to their friends and family, maybe even coworkers, to come celebrate that moment with them.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I invited a family member to come to our little girl's baby dedication, and they came, you know, when ordinarily they might not come to church. So if you say, hey, this is really important to me, I would love it if you would be at my baptism. They come and they experience that you are telling Jesus, I'm yours forever, you're being baptized, but then they also stay for the rest of the church service because we do our baptisms as part of that service. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, there's a lot of just logistical stuff that goes into planning a baptism. What kinds of questions are your teams asking and processing just logistically that will help you execute a really excellent baptism?
Yeah, it all goes back to that heart of wanting baptism to be meaningful and organized for somebody. So we kind of prompt those questions by asking just how are we going to do that? And how we go about doing that is just thinking of the experience from beginning to end. And so we like to keep our participants that are getting baptized and their families or friends that are coming in mind. So asking questions like, man, what's it going to be like for them when they show up in the parking lot? Are they going to be able to find a spot to park? Are they going to be able to know where to go once they arrive? Where's the baptism meeting, if your church is having one, located before service starts? And just really asking the question, have we laid out a great experience for those that are participating, not just during the baptism, but once they arrive? Because really that's when the baptism experience begins, is when people show up.
Yeah, and so some of that is prep work because we need to have communicated well enough ahead of time that they know maybe which entrance to walk into, or they know what to bring with them on that day. I know another thing that you guys are thinking through is if you need additional volunteers or greeters or people hosting the people being baptized. So those are all questions that you need to think through ahead of time. One really good tip, a lot of our teams do this in different things that we do here at the church, is something called a walkthrough. So we have a resource that is for our kids ministry. It's called a kids ministry walkthrough that you can find here on the Open Network. But for baptism, you could do this on the day that you have everything set up, or you could actually just kind of do this in your mind and walk through your church. But you actually start physically in the parking lot. You take your staff out to the parking lot, and then you walk through and you try and figure out actually every person and place they're going to hit in their experience. And that'll really help expose maybe some of the weak areas or where you hadn't thought of something in baptism.
Yeah, absolutely. And beforehand is so important, but we even realize during the baptism experience, you're right, there's so many logistics that go into pulling off a great baptism weekend. And so one of the ways that we achieve that with excellence is by utilizing our volunteer teams to do that. And so our volunteer teams for baptism are made up of baptism hosts, some guest services volunteers, and then also logistics volunteers, because when you set up a big pool in the auditorium, which is where we set it up at our church, it takes a lot to have all of that function the way it's meant to be functioned, right? Not just setting up the pool, but making sure that the water's warm and making sure that it's warm for the right reasons so that people have a comfortable experience.
What are the wrong reasons?
Well, hey, we won't go there, but when you have a baptism, the last thing that you want to remember is that it was just a freezing, miserable experience. So we make sure that our water is warm, that the pool is heated, and that it's comfortable for people, so they can focus on celebrating their new life in Christ and not thinking about how cold they might be because those details weren't thought through on the front end.
So that's another really good tip. Jacqueline, do you want to talk about the dark T-shirts that we use?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the pool, we have 2 different T-shirts that we give to different people. So people that are getting baptized, we have a blue T-shirt to indicate that they are getting baptized. And then for people that are in the pool that are helping baptize other people, they have a black T-shirt. So this will give the staff that's working, the volunteer teams, just a visual cue of like who is doing what in the pool, and will help make that organizing piece, making sure it's meaningful and organized, just go a little bit better.
Yeah, and by supplying dark T-shirts, we're able to supply T-shirts that person can take home, and the person being baptized, their T-shirt says, "Meet the new me." So it really represents like the before and after of them being baptized. But you could actually just buy a set of T-shirts and just keep them at the church and allow people to wear them. Maybe get them from Walmart or Target or something. But what's really good and practical is to get a dark color, because when people are submerged and then they come up wet, you don't want to be able to see through their clothing. So if they bring clothing from home, you're going to want to make sure that it's either a dark color that you've asked them or that you supply a dark color when they come.
Yeah.
And one of those pieces of communication that we let people know ahead of time, just so they're prepared for the day of, is just to wear dark colored bottoms.
Okay.
That way we are communicating in advance to make sure that they're wearing those dark things and they're prepared for it. So.
Okay, so the last piece of the puzzle is hopefully you have been communicating to attenders, you've been communicating to the people who are being baptized, and then what about your staff? Is there anything different or unique that they need to know on a baptism weekend, or maybe different roles they're doing?
Yeah, so what we recognize with baptism is that our baptism participants aren't just adults, right? Many of those that are getting baptized are students and kids. So what it presents for us at our church is a great opportunity for ministries to really partner with one another at the campus level. And so what happens here at Life.Church is our operations pastor, who is leading through baptisms as a whole, partners with our kids pastor for Life Kids, and then our youth pastor for Switch, really to make sure that all the communication systems and follow-up is carried out in the way that it needs to, that parents are involved and that they're aware of what's happening, and that we bring them into that process, because really, it's their son or daughter who's walking through one of the most meaningful spiritual decisions and events in their life. And so the better that we can partner together to make that happen, the more meaningful and organized baptism is going to be for that individual.
Yeah, I love that, because when you think about operations, you don't immediately think of the pastoral element, but you are pastoring people through this baptism event. So just making sure that you work with your kids ministry or your host team ministry, whoever is involved, to make sure that pastoring is happening and that it's life-giving. Okay, so when you're talking about setting up and tearing down a pool, at Life.Church we don't have baptismals built into our campuses, so we set up a pool and we set it up inside the auditorium where everyone is worshiping. So there's a lot of extra water happening as people are getting in and out of the pool. Can you talk a little bit about what safety measures we take with that much water?
Yeah, whenever you're baptizing 5, 10, 50, sometimes 100 people, there's a lot of extra water that is going all the places.
Just everywhere.
Yes, yes. So we are really intentional about making sure that we have set up additional mats, maybe carpeting, that sort of thing, that will walk people from where they're getting baptized to either the restroom or a changing area that you've set up. That way you're minimizing the amount of wet floors and just chaos ensuing wherever you have baptism set up. So that's one thing that we found to be really, really helpful, is just clearing the way, making sure that there's plenty of dry mops for volunteers and people to clean up the water. Just really goes to making sure that there's a lot of safety precautions in baptism.
Yeah, and the mats help to clearly mark the route back to the changing room or the restroom too, so you don't have like wet, cold people feeling lost after they've been baptized. Jacqueline, thank you so much for sharing that about safety. We want to make sure that it's a celebration and it's really safe.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for walking us through the preparation aspect of how we do baptisms here at Life.Church. If you stick around with us on this same page, the next training we're going to cover is all about our baptism meeting that happens right before baptism.